The long-feared regional firestorm has officially breached the gates of the world's most critical energy and military hub. In a stunning escalation of the 2026 Iran war, Iranian ballistic missiles and low-flying bombers have directly struck Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM. As smoke rises over the Qatari desert, the neutrality of the Gulf's primary peace broker has vanished, replaced by the roar of air defenses and the reality of a full-scale Middle Eastern conflict. On March 3, 2026, the strategic silence of Qatar was shattered when an Iranian ballistic missile successfully penetrated the sophisticated air defense umbrella protecting Udeid. While Qatari and U.S. batteries intercepted the majority of the incoming barrage, one missile found its mark, striking a logistics area and a perimeter facility. This followed a harrowing engagement on March 2nd, where Qatari F-15QA Ababil fighters recorded their first-ever air-to-air kills, downing two Iranian Su-24 Mk bombers just 2 minutes before they could unleash payloads on the base and the nearby Ras Laffan gas complex. The technical audacity of the strike was underscored by the weaponry used. Iran deployed a mix of precision-guided ballistic missiles and swarms of suicide drones to overwhelm the base's Patriot and THAAD systems. Reports indicate that while casualties were miraculously avoided, the damage to infrastructure was significant. Most notably, the AN/FPS-132 early warning radar system, a $1.1 billion phased array behemoth critical for tracking threats across the Gulf, was reportedly hit, potentially blinding a key sector of the regional missile defense network. The international community has reacted with a mixture of horror and frantic mobilization. The United Nations Security Council called for an emergency session, though the collapse of the 2025 nuclear talks has left little room for mediation. President Donald Trump, in a statement following the strikes, characterized the Iranian action as an act of desperation by a regime facing imminent collapse. He reiterated that the U.S. objective remains the total degradation of Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities. Conversely, Iranian state media hailed the strikes as a precision punishment for Qatar's role in hosting American forces used in Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israeli campaign that began on February 28th. In Europe, leaders from the UK, France, and Germany, who triggered snapback sanctions just months prior, have condemned the violation of Qatari sovereignty, yet they find themselves powerless to stop the kinetic momentum. Meanwhile, the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, has stood in rare unified defiance, with Saudi Arabia and the UAE moving their forces to the highest state of alert, as Iranian missiles also targeted Riyadh and the Ras Tanura refinery. The military consequences of the Udeid strike cannot be overstated. Udeid is not merely a runway. It is the Combined Air Operations Center, CAOC, the brain that coordinates all air missions across the Middle East, Northeast Africa, and Central Asia. By targeting the early warning radar at Dahal, Iran has attempted to blind the watchman. If this radar remains offline, the reaction time for intercepting incoming threats toward Israel and other Gulf allies is halved, creating a window of vulnerability that Iran's proxies, like the remaining remnants of Hezbollah and various militias, are eager to exploit. Furthermore, the shift from proxy warfare to direct Iranian state-on-state aggression, using manned bombers and domestic ballistic missiles, signals a change in Tehran's doctrine. The IRGC appears to be utilizing a scorched earth strategy, betting that by inflicting high-cost hardware damage on the U.S., $1.9 to $2.4 billion in equipment losses already estimated, they can force a domestic political outcry in Washington. The base, which houses over 10,000 U.S. personnel, is now a frontline combat zone, necessitating the deployment of additional carrier strike groups to the Arabian Sea to bolster the thinning regional defense. For decades, Qatar performed a delicate diplomatic tightrope walk, hosting the U.S. military while maintaining open channels with Iran and sheltering the political wing of Hamas. That era is over. The strike on Udeid has forced Doha into a with-us or against-us reality. On March 4, Qatari authorities arrested 10 suspected IRGC-linked agents in Doha, accusing them of espionage and sabotage. This pivot marks a fundamental shift in the regional power dynamic. Qatar is no longer the mediator but a combatant. This shift has also sparked intense political debate in the U.S. Critics of the administration argue that the failure of the February 2026 nuclear talks and the subsequent launch of Operation Epic Fury has placed American service members in an untenable position. Supporters, however, point to the assassination of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on the first day of the war as proof that the regime change objective is within reach. The political fallout is also hitting the global economy, as the threat to the Strait of Hormuz and Qatar's LNG exports has sent oil and gas prices to record highs, creating an energy panic across Europe and Asia. Military analysts from the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, suggest that Iran is currently in a reflexive retaliation phase. Having lost their central leadership and significant portions of their command and control in the initial U.S.-Israeli waves, the IRGC is now decentralized, with local commanders launching whatever remains in their arsenals. The strike on Al Udeid was likely intended to be a mass casualty event that failed only due to the rapid response of Qatari pilots and U.S. interceptors. The long-term question is whether the Iranian regime can survive the internal pressure. Reports of student protests in Tehran and Karaj, combined with the death of Khamenei, suggest a vacuum of power. However, as one analyst noted, a cornered tiger is most dangerous. Iran's focus on high-value economic and military targets like Al Udeid and Ras Laffan indicates a strategy of maximum pain, hoping to trigger a global economic depression that forces the U.S. to the negotiating table before the Iranian state fully disintegrates. The strike on Al Udeid Air Base marks a point of no return in the 2026 Iran war. With U.S. infrastructure damaged and Qatari neutrality dead, the conflict has entered a volatile new chapter where no border is sacred and no base is safe. The blinding of key radar systems has raised the stakes for every nation in the Persian Gulf. The strike on Al Udeid has changed the map of this war overnight. We are witnessing the end of an era of neutrality in the Gulf and the beginning of a much more dangerous, direct confrontation. But this is just one piece of a rapidly shifting puzzle. Right now, reports are surfacing about a massive naval movement near the Strait of Hormuz that could send global energy prices into a total tailspin. If you want to stay ahead of these developments and understand what's actually happening behind the headlines of the 2026 conflict, you need to be here. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications right now. We are monitoring the situation in Qatar and Tehran 24/7, and you won't want to miss our next emergency update dropping in just a few hours. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.